The Titans lost to a combination of the Vikings and the referees on Sunday. Are we going to do that? Are we going to play that game? Let's we'll recap this Titans-Vikings. Titans lose 23-13 in Nashville. This is the Music City Audible. Let's get to it. Oh, welcome everyone to another episode of the Music City Audible podcast presented by Broadway Sports Media in partnership with 440 Sports. I'm Justin Graver. With me, as always, Justin Melo and Justin. The Titans lose in Nashville. They're 2-8 now, 23-13 to the Vikings, up to number 2 in the draft. I think we'll save that conversation for later in the week because there's still more games to be played here as we record in the middle of the afternoon on Sunday. But I kind of teased it there in the intro. I think there's two main topics that we need to hit on this recap. Number one is Will Levis, who numbers are numbers. I thought this was maybe by far his best game of the season for the Titans. And number two, the referees, where you look, I'm not blame the refs guy. I don't think you're blame the refs guy. We very rarely are blame the refs podcast. But holy shit, this game. Where do you want to start, Justin? How's it going?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I mean, if there's going to be a game where you play the blame the refs game or this is it, right? Like this is, and look, I'm not saying the Titans would have won this game for sure. Certainly would have had a better chance if everything didn't go their way, literally everything. But some of those, they were really tough, man, really tough. And I'm excited to talk about that. And I'm excited to talk about Will Levis.
So Will Levis finishes this game. Let's start with Will Levis because it's more enjoyable to talk about this. Will Levis finishes this game 17 of 31, not a super high completion percentage, 295 yards. I think that's his season high total. I would probably should have looked that up before I just started talking about it, and now I'm kind of filibustering while I will. Yes, that is his season high total. Only his second game this year over 200 yards. 295 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He did take 5 sacks in this game. Also had 7 carries for 18 yards. But I think looking at the box score for this one can be a little misleading because there's a few things about Will Levis's game that we are looking specifically for improvement in certain areas. And I think we saw it in most of those areas today. Not all of them, 5 sacks, but in most of those areas today, we saw that improvement. I think he was making much quicker decisions. He was under constant pressure. The Vikings were blitzing the hell out of him. Entering the fourth quarter, he was 7 for 8 against the blitz with 2 touchdown passes, although one didn't actually count, and plus 150 QB rating. I mean, he was playing very well against the blitz, but it wasn't just against the blitz. I thought throughout the game, he was decisive. He was mostly accurate. Not every throw was accurate. You're never going to have 100% accuracy rating in a game. But overall, I thought this was a pretty good step forward for Will Levis against a very talented and very well-coordinated defense run by Brian Flores over there.
Yeah, so a lot of times this year, you and I both have put the crux, if you will, of Will Levis's play on his shoulders and not so much on the offensive line. Now, I know he was sacked 5 times today. This is one I'm putting more on the O-line than I am on Will Levis. I think the right tackle situation continues to be an abomination, a total disaster. I tweeted before the game, they've now played 5 different right tackles in 10 games, and with maybe a caveat, but none of them really due to injury, right? Like they've chosen to play 5 different right tackles when they didn't have to play that many. So it was bad today. Isaiah Prince, whoever that is, works into the rotation. NPF, just as bad as always. I thought Peter Skoronski didn't play very well in this game. I thought Daniel Brunskill didn't play very well in this game. This was a bad performance by the offensive line against a very good, creative Vikings defense, a good D-line and a creative defense that utilizes blitzes, simulated pressures. Sometimes it looks like they're sending the house and they all drop in coverage. Like, this is Brian Flores defense. We talked about it on the preview episode. I think our expectations for Will heading into this game were fairly low, to be honest. I mean, based on what we've seen from him this year, but also based on what we knew the challenge was going to be, right, against this defense. So, but I'm trying not to get carried away here. I'm telling you, I was really encouraged by this performance by Will Levis. Extremely encouraged. I think it was by far his best showing of the season so far. And, I want to get into it, but a lot of good. And I would say only a little dash of bad, but a lot more good than bad, in my opinion.
I totally agree. And you mentioned all the O-linemen who struggled there. I didn't mention Dylan Radins, who was the main culprit on the 4th down sack that essentially ended the game. Although that is another one where, look, I'm being nitpicky, and I know I'm being nitpicky because this was a good game for Will, but if you're going to be a great quarterback, which is the standard in this league, we're going to be a little nitpicky. On that one, it's fourth down. It's fourth down. Just throw the ball. If you throw an interception, it doesn't matter. I know there's been a lot drilled into his head about not making a careless play in a situation where there's no play to be made, but it's fourth down with the game on the line. At that point, you got to have a little more awareness and just throw it to somebody somewhere. And if it gets picked off, it gets picked off, whatever. You lose the game either way. So that's the only one I'll nitpick. I thought the other sacks were pretty much entirely on the offensive line. Even that one wasn't necessarily fully on Will, but you got to get rid of the ball. But a 98-yard touchdown to Nick Westbrook-Akina that was laid out perfectly. I mean, that was a perfect ball. Westbrook did not have to break stride, just sprinted 98 yards to the end zone. The touchdown to Calvin Ridley that didn't count was another beautiful ball under pressure. The illegal formation penalty. I'm not going to get into it. We're saving the ref talk. Let's talk about Will Levis. Beautiful ball to Calvin Ridley there for that touchdown. And then after it gets wiped away, hits Bryce Oliver down the field on the next pass, which was a great throw. Good route by Oliver, but it's like third and very long, and he makes that play. There was a 1st and 20 throw that he got into a 2nd and 1. There was a number of plays where he was under instant pressure and either had to like sidearm deliver it and made a nice throw, or just had to quickly get rid of it over the middle to Nick Van Nett for a nice little gain on first down, but it's way better than a negative play. And those are very encouraging signs because, again, this is a great defense that has played great all year. And on the other hand, we've been talking about the supporting cast all year and how they haven't really been helping Will Levis too much or enough, but we're still putting a lot of blame on Will Levis most of the season. In this game, I thought the supporting cast failed him more than they have at any point in his career as an NFL player. I mean, we've talked about the offensive line, so we don't need to go too far into that anymore, but they were abysmal for the majority of this game. There was a couple of drops that shouldn't have been drops. The one that was low over the middle early in the game that was a low throw, admittedly, but you got to catch that ball. And so just the supporting cast letting him down so much. And we haven't even talked about the run game in this one. Titans run the ball 19 times for 33 yards. That's an average yards per carry of 1.7. Will Levis accounted for 18 of those 33 yards. Tony Pollard, who has been great this year. I don't want to hammer Tony Pollard too much. He's playing through something. He got banged up a few weeks ago. He's been playing through it. Tajay Spears got banged up today. And only had 3 carries, but 3 carries for 0 yards for Tajay Spears, 9 carries for 15 yards for Tony Pollard. Against a great defense, when your offensive line is not protecting well, you are never going to win a game if that's your rushing box score. Unless you are just lights out through the air and your offensive line is actually giving you good pass protection. But combine those rushing stats with 5 sacks. I mean, this team, this offense really let down Will Levis today in a way that we haven't particularly seen in his career.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'll kind of go through some of the bad real quick because you kind of touched on a little bit of everything there. And I don't want to spend too much time on the bad because there wasn't a lot of it. The 4th down sack, I agree with you. He's got to get rid of the ball. He didn't do that. He should have. There was I think it was in the 4th quarter already, a 3rd and 12 where he just airmailed it out the back of the end zone and they kicked the field goal and they were already down a ton of points. It looked like he had Nick Westbrook-Akina open underneath, like quite open for a first down gain on what was a 3rd and 12. He just, kind of trucks the ball out of bounds. They kicked 3 points.
He was running
a couple times, 1 or 2 times.
He was running that one play that looked like the 4th touchdown against the Falcons, where it's like a full rollout to the right, throwback to the far left.
I thought the same thing.
But I think he was locked into that read and realized it wasn't open, so just shot it out the back of the end zone to make sure they had the field goal and never got his eyes over to the wide open Nick Westbrook-Akina. And whether that's, we don't know. Was he ever supposed to look there? Was that just a clear out route that obviously you can, call an audible mid-play and like react to what you're seeing and do something different. So like the great quarterbacks probably would have. Yeah, the great quarterbacks probably would see that. But again, how many starts has he even had? Like we're holding him to a high standard because you need to, but also giving him a little bit of grace where I think grace is due. And that one, like, yes, he was open. Yes, he should have seen him. But if it's not in the progression to go there with your eyes, he needs more experience before he's going to just start doing that automatically. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, again, I'm really encouraged by this performance. I'm just getting the fact out that there were 3 or 4 bad plays, and those were the ones, essentially. You covered a lot of the great ones. I mean, the 98-yard throw. I mean, they ran it on first down. Like the second down, they essentially gave up on it too. You're facing a third and however it was, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 11, essentially on your 2-yard line. I thought they were on their 1, but whatever, the 2-yard line. And perfect. Hits Nick Westbrook in stride, 35, 40-yard pass, whatever it was. Hits him in stride, NWI Honda Accord, as they call him, runs the rest of the way for an historic 98-yard score. The Calvin Ridley one, same thing. It gets called. That Calvin Ridley one, by the way, I know we're going to get into the rest, but I thought that was a horseshit call on Prince. That one did not look like a legal formation to me. The next one that erased another big play that was called on Prince did look like the correct call. Looked like an illegal formation. But that first one to really, I thought, like the commentator even pointed out live, I mean, Dylan Radins looked like he's just as far back as Prince is. Like, and Radins knows what he's doing, right? Like again, I say that knows what he's doing because I think Prince, when you haven't really played football this year and they're calling these things differently, I can see how Prince got himself into that situation where he gets a couple of these things called on him that's never been called on him in the past, right? It's kind of a new emphasis this year. But that first one I did not think was a legal formation. I thought the Ridley touchdown should have stood. But anyway, comes back on the next one, hits Bryce Oliver, as you said. Talk about the things that don't show up on the box score. Playing with confidence, right?
Yeah.
Like not letting that rattle you. Like that Ridley call doesn't go your way. So what do? You stand in there tough in the pocket. He got nailed on that throw to Oliver, if I'm recalling correctly. Like he got hit hard as he let it go. Like there were a couple of plays, the 4th down one you mentioned, where we saw some of the negatives that we don't want to see, holding onto the ball, not being decisive. But I thought there were a lot of throws in this game that were decisive. As you said, at one point, 7 of 8 against the blitz with 1 touchdown pass, and it should have been 2. He was decisive. He was making quick decisions. He was largely accurate. You talked about one of the first ones I wanted to bring up, for a 1st and 20 after a holding call in the first half, and he hits Nick Westbrook Akine on the sideline for an 18-yard gain. Again, great quick decision, great throw. There was one early in the game that there was a minimal, but I gave him credit right off the bat. 3rd and 12, under pressure immediately. What does he do? He just hits his check down to Chig. He gets a little lucky that Chig picks up the first down, but what's the teaching point there? Sometimes good things happen when you just take the safe play and protect the football, right? That's the type of play early on against the Bears where he's flipping it out of bounds and get a pick 6 or rolling it behind the line of scrimmage, right? Like you take the safe play, you take what's there, and hey, you get rewarded for it once in a while, right? Like I thought I saw a pretty damn fair amount of growth from Will Levis in this game.
I agree. And like, there's still some things he's going to need to work through. Like, you know, there were a handful of times where he holds the ball too long. He still does that too often. And that's okay at this stage because he made up for it in other ways in this game. And I thought, you know, I think this is a good place to transition to the penalties. But first, let's hit I'll Drink to That, presented by Sinkers Beverages in East Nashville. And I'm drinking to Will Levis's encouraging performance today because we have said, like, the book's not yet closed, although it's starting to be towards the end of the book. And, like, maybe we need to add some more pages, Justin, because there's a handful of games left this season where if he continues to play like the guy we saw today, he can be a quarterback for another season in a weak draft class where you're not necessarily going to invest the farm in one of these guys coming out. Maybe you do give Will Levis another chance and you just go and see if he can develop and beef up the rest of the roster with a premium pick, and you still basically have another chance to get up in a high pick. If Will Levis is a disaster again next year, it's going to look a lot like this season did, and you're going to be picking near the top of the draft again in a class that's going to have a lot better quarterback talent. So I'm not saying that this one game changes your entire opinion of Will Levis. He's got to string together performances like this. We didn't even talk about the interception at the end of the game. Look, at that point in the game, you're trying to make a play. You're trying to do something. Your odds of winning are very low at that point anyway. You need 2 scores. I have no issue with that interception. I don't necessarily think it was a great read, but it wasn't, like, it is what it is at that point in the game. So I'm sort of just letting that one go, the interception. But I'm drinking today to the encouraging performance from Will Levis and him showing signs again that maybe he's starting to understand this offense. Maybe his head's not spinning so much. He has some more answers that he didn't have earlier in the year. And if he continues to play like this, he might buy himself another season.
I'm with you. Yeah, I think there's a decent chance that if he finishes the season the way he played today, that he could buy himself another season. And again, it helps that it's a perceived weak quarterback class. as we've talked about. Like Dane Brugler just dropped an updated big board on The Athletic. He didn't have a quarterback until 16th overall, and it was Cam Ward, who I think most of us would agree is not our QB1, at least between you and I think. But if you're in a situation there to take, again, we don't want to talk about the draft, but a premium player, like what helped kind of kickstart those John Robinson Titans, the good years at least, right? When you thought you had your quarterback and you traded down and you got a bunch of picks and you made use out of most of those picks, right? So if he keeps playing like this, you get a situation where you do trade down and you get a right tackle and a wide receiver, an edge. Like, yeah, there's a case to be made if he keeps going the way that it did today. And last week, too, we talked about it. I thought he played well last week as well. There is a case to be made that maybe he's still going to be your guy for at least one more year.
Right. All right. One more topic of conversation here. The refereeing in this game was atrocious, and it was atrociously one-sided, which, like, if it's evenly atrocious, you can live with it, and you can say it didn't cost either team the game. Now, again, I don't think, and I'm getting pushback on Twitter because I tweeted this already, I think the Titans' inability to run the ball was the reason they lost this game. I think the officiating was very hurtful to their chances of winning. But the reason you lost is because you just couldn't move the ball very well on offense, especially on the ground. Now, the caveat to that is the officiating was absolutely horrendous. Took points off the board for Tennessee when it was a bad call and added points to the Vikings score when it was bad call. So let's start with the first one because this is the one I have the least issue with. The illegal contact on Jarvis Brownlee against Justin Jefferson on the Vikings' second drive on third down was a horrendous call. There was not illegal contact on that play. That, I think, is a young defensive back not getting the benefit of the doubt against the best receiver in football who kind of like looks for a flag and then gets the flag. It's almost like the way the NBA whistle goes for superstars versus non-superstars. It's like this is a fifth-round rookie up against an all-time great receiver already, even at this stage of his career. So we're going to give him the flag when he's looking for the flag. It was not a flag. It was not illegal contact. Next play, I think it was the next play, Jordan Addison goes 47 yards to the house. Now, the Vikings should have been off the field because that third down was incomplete and should not have been a penalty. So you can say that Jordan Addison shouldn't have scored that touchdown. At the same time, you're at the 47-yard line. Like, your defense still has a chance to get a stop there. So I'm not saying that the Vikings were gifted 7 points on that one. It was a bad call. Titans should have had the ball. The way the Titans offense went today, they probably would have gone 3 and out and punted it right back. And who knows, maybe that Jordan Addison touchdown happens anyway on the next play. So I'm not necessarily blaming the refs for that one, but that was the first bad call. The next one was also a bad call on Jarvis Brownlee Jr., but I think that was later in the game. It was the Mike Brown hit in the end zone on Jordan Addison on the next Vikings possession. First, they go for it on 4th and 1, and they're able to pick it up. And then they get down to 4th and goal from the 1, and they go for it again. And Mike Brown just obliterates Jordan Addison in a 100% legal way. Shoulder to the chest of the receiver, not a blindside hit, not a defenseless receiver hit, didn't lead with the helmet, didn't launch as they were sort of theorizing might be the reason they threw the flag on the broadcast. Horrible call. 4th down, should have been the Titans' ball. Instead, it's 1st and goal from like the half-yard line. Brian Callahan explodes on the sideline, costs them another maybe 6 inches there, and the Vikings punch it in on the next play. That was atrocious. Atrocious officiating, and I get it from Brian Callahan's standpoint. It's like, what do you expect these guys to do? Are they not allowed to play defense? Should they just sit down when the ball is snapped? Or when the ball's in the air, should they just put their hands behind their back and stop playing? Like, what are you supposed to do if that's a penalty? It's perfect defense, and they give you a flag, and they put 7 points on the board for the Vikings. Horrific officiating. There should be an investigation, but the league doesn't care because it's the Titans, and they don't give a shit. And actually, maybe they like that we're on a podcast talking about this now, and it's going to be a topic of conversation all week amongst Titans media, and then people will tune in to the next game to see if the officiating got any better. Maybe they actually like the shit officiating. So, bullshit play. But there's nothing you can do but put your arms up and say, well, great, thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll send the Titans a nice apology letter. That will mean a lot later this week. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I think a lot of us are, we're a little numb to this team this year. We're not overly invested. It's a weird way for me to start a sentence, but all that to say, I was absolutely livid at that call because I think what bothers me, and I'm going to sound a little cheesy and cliche here, but like I love the game. Right? Like, I love the game of football. I know how hard these guys work. Like, for you to take that play away from a defense that worked so hard to make that play on a 4th and goal, and they're fired up, and it is a clean, legal hit. As you said, it's already hard enough to play defense in this league. Okay, let's not make it harder when we're actually executing clean, legal hits. There's not a lot of them nowadays, right? We've outlawed a lot of things. We've changed a lot of things about the way the game is played. A lot of those changes are positive. Let's be honest, right? They've done well in some areas to make the game safer and all that stuff. But that hit is a clean, legal hit. That is textbook. That is actually teach tape on how you want to deliver big hits nowadays, right? It's not leading with the helmet. It's to the chest. It's not to the head area. It is a perfect hit. And it was on 4th down, 4th and goal. That is a turnover on downs. I was livid because the Titans deserved to create that turnover on downs for executing a clean, legal hit in that situation. So I was absolutely up in arms about it. It's one of the worst calls you'll see. Brian Callahan had the right idea. Don't really blame him for losing his top there. On top of it, he's frustrated, right? Like, this is a 2-7 team. He hates losing. I think you can see that he hates losing. It's very obvious every press conference that he hates losing. And that play was essentially like a 14 swing, it felt like. Don't really blame him for losing his marbles on that one.
Yeah, me neither. And it doesn't cost you, like the 15 yards there is only 6 inches. So it doesn't cost you anything. It gives your team a chance to see you fired up to defend them. They want to play harder for you. Like, I love everything about that Brian Callahan moment. If he had done it in a situation where you actually give up 15 yards, it's a different story. But I think he's smart enough to know that that wasn't the case. And that maybe that was a bit of a performance to fire his team up even and get the stop now that it's 1st and goal or whatever. I love that. Now, let's move on to the Jarvis Brownlee Jr. second penalty. It's 3rd and 11, 5:31 to play in the 3rd quarter. Vikings up 16-10. This is right after the 98-yard touchdown. If the Titans get a stop here, they have so much momentum, down by 6 points, and a chance to really go make this an interesting game. Jeffrey Simmons sacks Sam Darnold and recovers a strip sack fumble on this play. All Jeffrey Simmons, just a monster play by Jeffrey Simmons. Guess what? It doesn't count because Jarvis Brownlee Jr. illegally contacted, again, Justin Jefferson, about 5.5 yards down the field. Granted, it's illegal to contact within 5 yards, and past 5, it's not legal anymore. This is a call they let go. This is just a cornerback playing defense. And they throw the flag. It wipes off the strip sack. It wipes out the Titans' chances, essentially, to get back in this game with 5 minutes left in the 3rd quarter. It is horse shit. It's horrible. The NFL has a problem that they don't care to address. It's turning people away from the sport. And again, you and I, not that emotionally invested in a Titans team. 2-8, 3-7. Who really cares? They're not going to the playoffs this year, right? We don't really care that much if they win this game. In fact, we admit it's better for the future of this team if they lose this game and get a better draft pick. That doesn't make it okay. This is horse shit. And the NFL's got to do something about it. And they're not going to. And it's just frustrating.
Yeah, this is the one where I thought Justin Jefferson kind of tied up Jarvis Brownlee equally. Like, to me, they were kind of both jockeying and fighting for positioning, and the call just goes Jefferson's way because he's Justin Jefferson. Like, I didn't think this was a legal contact on Brownlee at all. By the way, like, we're so up in arms about these. There was a horse collar penalty on a Titans kickoff that I didn't even notice until later that it was a horrible call, because guess what? It happened like 2 or 3 minutes after another horrible call against the Titans that I was still outraged, kind of looking at my phone, that when I looked up, they called this horse collar. You look at the replay, he tackled him by the shoulder pad. He had his hand on the left shoulder pad and the right shoulder pad. There was no horse collar at all. That was another 15-yard penalty that was outrageous.
Yeah, it's outrageous. It's just totally outrageous. And it didn't stop there. You know, the Titans give up a touchdown on that drive when they, again, should have got the ball back. And the next possession is the Calvin Ridley 51-yard touchdown that doesn't count.
Yeah.
And then you end up kicking a field goal there. Even if you let the stupid illegal contact stand because you just have a hard-on for the Vikings for some reason, if you're the NFL and you're the refs in this game, I don't know. Even then, the Titans had a chance to like get back in the game, but then you take off the Calvin Ridley touchdown. And it's like, how much are they expected to overcome? And I know I said earlier that I think inability to run the ball is more to blame than these referee plays, but I can understand someone who believes the opposite, who believes that these calls really took away any chance for the Titans to win this game, because not only do they set you back, not only do they add points and take points and whatever and make it more difficult, they're momentum killers and they're confidence killers and they are drive killers, and they just suck the life out of your team. And it makes you feel as a player like there's nothing you can do to overcome, to win this game. Because if you do something well, they're just going to throw a flag. And even on like the Jalen Naylor dropped what would have been a touchdown late in the game that would have totally iced it, I made the joke in our group chat like, oh, wow, they forgot to throw a flag on that play. Jalen Naylor didn't catch a deep ball. It must have been a penalty on the Titans, right? I mean, that's the way this game works. It's just super frustrating. It makes you play more hesitant because you're afraid to get these penalties, even if you're doing something that's not illegal. And it's just horrible to watch. So I don't know. I don't have any further thoughts on it. I think we railed on it quite a bit here. Again, not blame the refs guy, but this was egregious. Titans finished with 13 penalties for 91 yards. Vikings just 3 penalties for 35 yards. 13-3. Tell me that happened, that actually happened. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to conclude by saying, because we've talked a lot about the refs, I'll conclude by saying I agree with the big picture that I don't think the Titans played well enough to win this game. I thought in the first half, we're also like a lot of those big Levis plays came in the second half. I don't want to say we're overlooking, because you did bring it up about the run game. They didn't move the ball well enough, particularly in the first half. I felt like they couldn't even pick up a first down.
Right.
At times in that first half. And generally speaking, no, I don't think they played well enough to win it. But if you wanted to go down the rabbit hole and say, damn, a free touchdown to the Vikings, and that's not an over-exaggeration. It certainly felt like a free touchdown on the Mike Brown call. And then you take away the Calvin Ridley 51-yarder, and then a couple of the others that maybe could have gone another way. Certainly the 15-yard penalty on the horse collar, and some of the Jarvis Brownlee ones that helped lead the point. Like, yeah, you start to say, damn, maybe the Titans would have won this game if not for all those calls. But I'll maintain I don't necessarily think they played well enough to win it. I'm not going to go 100% the other way and say absolutely the refs cost the Titans this game. There are some things they could have done better themselves. But ultimately, it was a horribly officiated game, one of the worst that we've seen against the Titans, at least in our time here. But I'm going to kind of walk away with a smile and say, hey, Will Levis played better ball today than he has for most of the season.
At the end of the day, the refs did the Titans a favor, because you don't want to win this game and end up with the 9th pick when you can lose this game and end up in the 2nd pick position right now as things stand. Because again, it doesn't help you, but you know what? They say there's no moral victories. There are moral victories for a 2-8 team. There are moral victories because you're building for next year at this point. You're not in the hunt anymore this year. But if you went to the full extreme, you could argue that the refs cost 28 points for the Titans, because the Jordan Addison first touchdown was after a horrible penalty. Obviously, the one that they were just gifted 7 points was 7 more points. That's 14. And then the Titans lose 7 points on the Calvin Ridley one, which they really only lost 4. So we'll call it 24 points because they ended up with a field goal on that drive. And then the strip sack that turns into a touchdown later that drive because of another Jarvis Brownlee bad penalty. That's 24-point swing there in a 10-point game. Now, that's the extreme side of it. But I know there are Titans fans out there who feel that way. So I'm trying to be your voice, Titans fans who feel that way. Any final thoughts from this game, Justin? I mean, there's not much else to discuss here. To your point about first downs and not moving the ball, Vikings 24 first downs in this game, Titans just 11. So some of that is because of bad penalties that gave the Vikings first downs and took first downs off the board for the Titans. But overall, there weren't 13. It wasn't a discrepancy of 13 first downs because of the officiating. So that's sort of what we mean by the Titans, even with the officiating, still got outplayed in this game.
Absolutely. They did. We'll take it for what it's worth, evaluate it. I think the Will Levis All-22 tape is going to look even more encouraging when we get our hands on it. I'm actually very curious to see that because I did think he played well, but I'd like to go back and review the All-22 and double check and kind of get back to everyone. But looking forward to the Texans game next weekend and seeing how Will Levis plays. Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be a good test for him yet again. All right, that'll do it. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Thanks even more if you're watching on YouTube. Justin, I forgot to do this. This is the second episode in a row. I'll drink to that. Brought to you by Sinkers Beverages in East Nashville, the premier wine, spirits, and beer store. Serving the community since 1985, their knowledgeable staff is proud to help you with large parties, themed events, or finding something unique for a special occasion. From birthday parties to milestone celebrations to everyday moments, Sinkers can help with the right drink for every occasion. If you head to the sinkersbeverages.com website or check the link in this podcast description, you can join the In-Crowd. In-Crowd members get access to allocated wines and spirits, exclusive events, early access to barrel releases, and more. Plus, Sinkers Beverages
Beverages on Uber Eats. So thanks to our sponsor, Sinkers Beverages. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give this video a thumbs up, like, and drop a comment. Drop any comment below. Are you as mad as we are about the officiating? Where do you fall? Did the officiating cost this team the game, or was it just a hindrance to winning? Let us know in the comments. And what do you think of Will Levis' performance? Give us a grade, scale of 1 to 10. I'm going to give Will Levis a 7.2 for this game. Where do you fall, Justin?
That is, you know what? I'm going to Bob Barker. You always Bob Barker me. I'm going 7.3.
Nice. All right. 7.2, 7.3. So a 7.25 average performance for Will in this game. Pretty good, considering he's been at like a 3 to 5 most games this year. All right. That'll do it. Thanks everyone again. We'll be back later this week to maybe preview the Texans or just talk about some more draft prospects to watch. Tet McMillan was awesome on Friday night. So we called that one out before it happened. And
was he ever?
I don't know. Maybe we'll see some wide receiver rankings changes after a performance like that. Whatever. We'll talk more about it later this week. We'll talk about the draft order once we know how the rest of the week 11 slate finishes. And until then, you all stay safe out there and
Titan down.
A Broadway sports media production.